The Story That Never Ends by Sebastià Serra. A Bromera Writes audio story.
A bat flapped its wings, and from the sudden gust of air, the witch got a cold. In her cabin in the heart of the forest, she was trembling like a leaf on her bed. She was coughing and sneezing. Achoo! And from her cucumber nose hung bubbling bogus. The day was dawning, but she didn't feel like getting up. Gradually, she dragged her arm out from under the mountain of blankets covering her, and from her bedside table took a piece of paper.
What does it say here?
She thought, and with her eyes half shut from the fever, she read,
Urgent for Monday. Prepare a magic potion for the king's daughter. Suffers badly from migraines and they can't find a cure.
Then, when she stopped to think about it, her heart sank.
Monday? Monday! Oh, dearie me. But that's today!
She jumped out of bed like spring, wrapped herself up with 7 scarves, and threw herself over her book of enchantments.
Neck pain? Knee pain?
She murmured, running her finger over the yellowed pages.
Earache? Eyebrow pain? Aha!
Jolting into action, she put a pot of water to boil over the fire and dashed madly off to the pantry while rolling up the sleeves of her large sweater. Her long fingers moved like spiders among the shelves lined with jars and bottles of every shape and color. Once the water was boiling, she stood in front of the fire and with a sinister expression raised her hands amidst the clouds of steam. She tipped all the recipe's components into the pot while reciting in a nasal voice,
Migraine, be gone from the royal hair.
But without realizing it, she added another ingredient to the formula. A mucus drop ran from her nose and fell into the stinky brew. She still wasn't done filling a small flask with the remedy for the princess when she heard a loud knocking on her door. Sitting upon a majestic horse, a servant of the king took the bottle, tossed 3 gold coins into the air, and turned away without even a thank you. Galloping towards the palace, he made his way down the long, narrow path which split the forest like a parting. The witch, exhausted from her efforts, went back to bed, dreaming that a snowy silence muffled the birdsong in every corner of that dense forest. The first ray of morning sunshine entered the palace window and crossed the royal chamber towards the bed where the princess slept. It lit up the glass vial which rested on her bedside table, empty now of the remedy which the girl had taken the night before. Dazzled, she awoke. However, that morning she felt odd. What could it be?
Oh, I know!
She cried gleefully.
My headache is gone, of course!
Happy as Larry, she leapt out of bed and went to the bathroom, like every morning. But when she tried to go in, she couldn't pass through the door. What was going on? On top of her head had grown a tuft of hair as large and leafy as a bush.
Why do I have such bad luck?
She roared, disconsolate.
I'd rather have the headache.
She spent the whole morning crying her eyes out, but the deluge of tears only watered her head. With all the humidity, the thicket of hair had grown like a tree and was now touching the bedroom ceiling. The unpleasantness of it all made the princess feel slightly dizzy, and she thought it would do her good to go into the garden for a bit of fresh air. Making her way down the palace's long corridors, she staggered forward, trying to maintain her balance with that impossible hairdo. Suddenly, a goldfinch landed on her head, chirping in surprise at the softness of those branches. It wasn't long before a couple of chaffinches came along, followed by a family of sparrows, a dozen blackbirds, a group of robins, and a flock of starlings. By mid-afternoon, the princess's head was full of birds who tweeted and fluttered around her forest of hair. The birds made their nests there to lay their eggs in, and from these eggs came more birds, mice, squirrels, rabbits, and all kinds of animals burrowed into the thicket to make their homes soft as cotton. Soon, amongst the branches of that hairy forest, a man and a woman appeared, tall and stout, as big as houses. They were woodcutters and brandished enormous axes. Tangled up in the midst of that jungle, they wanted to open a clearing to build their shelter in. Barely stopping to think, they began to cut locks of hair with their axes. However, although they cut it to the root, as soon as they finished one side of the clearing, the other was already covered in hair again. There was simply no making any headway. Meanwhile, on the other side of the forest, all kinds of people were arriving. Shepherds, farmers, blacksmiths, weavers, and even a solitary witch. In order to make somewhere to live in that jungle, the new arrivals began to raise walls by braiding the hair that grew from the ground. They covered the roofs with curls. They wove courtyards and rooms. They parted paths and curled borders. They disentangled knots and made waves and swirls for the animals to feed on. Little by little, they built a village so well-kept it was a joy to see. The two woodcutters made no progress. Everything they chopped grew back again like weeds. Red from their exertions and anger, they looked enviously at the excellent work by the people in the village. One morning, when they were particularly annoyed, they took their axes and marched their huge selves down to the middle of the village square.
Well, who do you think you are?
They bellowed, deafening even the birds.
We were the first to arrive here, and all this is ours.
From now on, you will do as we say, and anyone who disobeys will find out how sharp our axes are.
They were so scary that no one dared contradict them. And so the resigned villagers, from one day to the next, were forced to become subjects of those two beasts. The two woodcutters made them build an enormous, well-brushed palace. The couple strode proudly through its rooms and yelled gardens, with crowds on their heads and always calling each other, Your Majesty or Your Highness. In time, the royal couple had a daughter with white gold curls like a drop of milk, who soon grew to be as tall as her parents. However, despite the girl's size, she often fell ill because the bird song gave her a headache. The village folk had long since become fed up with the royal family's heirs. But as they couldn't take them on by force, they had to come up with a way to keep them distracted so they wouldn't get even angrier. They sent the smartest girl in the village to the palace.
Your Majesties,
Said the girl, cutscene exaggeratedly while laughing to herself.
you will surely know that in order to truly enjoy your riches, you must count everything you own, down to the very last hair. That way, you can compare yourselves with other great fortunes from nearby and far away.
The king and queen looked at each other in surprise. They looked around anxiously and realized that, although they were very rich, it was true that they couldn't say just how rich they were.
From now on, no one is to distract us for any reason.
They shouted to all around. And, not wasting a second, from that day on, they were busy from sunup to sundown, counting one by one all the hairs in their kingdom. Thanks to this, the inhabitants of the village were able to live peacefully, unaffected by the whims and moods of those phony royals. One spring morning, the birds were singing everywhere, and the pearly princess's weeping could be heard throughout the palace. With all that racket, the king was unable to concentrate on counting and recounting hers. He kept losing track and having to start over.
I'm sick of this!
He exclaimed in annoyance.
I can't walk like this! Hurry up and find the cure!
Straight away, he sent a messenger into the heart of the forest to the witch's house. Standing outside the door to her hut, the witch took the order and wrote it down on a piece of paper.
Urgent. For Monday, prepare a magic potion for the king's daughter who suffers badly from migraines and they can't find a cure.
As she wrote it down, a bat fluttered by her neck, and at that moment, the witch sneezed. Achoo! And then she shivered.
The Story That Never Ends by Sebastià Serra. A Bromera writes audio story. Voiceover, Rubén Félix, Clara Laguarda and Victoria Mínguez. Sound design and production, NG Media. Executive production, Marta Moreno. Editorial coordination, Clara Vidal. Bromera.com.